I think my advice to those people who are in that sort of segment where they have resource issue, they should rely on already pre-made content out there. So, like if, for example, I think relying on Khan Academy, relying on videos that are already out there, content that don't make the content, find the content and try to make sure you reach out to your audience.
What is up, everybody? This is Asad Ali back again with another episode of In the Times with Cedar College, the podcast where we sit with people from Cedar College to hear their stories about how they're dealing with these, frankly speaking, upsetting times. Over the past few weeks since we started this series, the news hasn't been very great. If you may or may not know, there's been a lot of uproar on social media about inequality, about social justice, about death and loss of loved ones, and it it does leave a very, very heavy rock on my heart personally. I'm not one to comment on it much, but I do know is that it's something that can't be left unsaid and can't be left unaddressed. So, for all those who are listening, I'd highly recommend that you spare a moment to educate yourself about what's happening in the world and about how you can play your part in making about a positive impact, a positive change in fighting social inequality and fighting things that might be called unjust, in fighting for what is right, and fighting for others around you, for those that are weak, for those that may not have a voice. Share your voice, offer them your voice to speak up and to be that voice that they just need at that point in time. Let's bring the love back. I think that's something that's very important to me personally. Sharing the love, bringing the love, being there for one another. I think that it's time for empathy, and that's nothing. That's never going to be something that's going to die out. Kindness is never going to be overrated. Empathy is never going to be overrated. Being nice, being humble, being kind, being generous. These are all human qualities which keep us alive, which make us human. So let's get in touch with ourselves, let's get in touch with those around us, and let's remind each other that we have to stand strong and we have to be there for each other. I think this conversation that I have, that you're going to listen to shortly with Ali and Anwerzada, is something which will allow you to maybe, embrace the friendships that you have. Sir Ali has been not just a teacher of mine, he's been a mentor figure, and now I don't even call him my mentor, I call him my brother. And that's quite literally. I think he knows he calls me his little brother, I call him my elder brother. And when you hear us talk, you'll hear us share a laugh towards the end of the podcast, but you'll also hear some very smart, real conversation about what's happening in the world from an economics perspective, and also to give you some perspective on Sir Ali himself. He is an economist. He studied economics purely from LUMS and then went to University of Chicago to study policy. He is the owner of 2 schools. He's a father as well. He's a husband. He's a son. And he's a teacher, a figure, a hero for all of us. And I seriously hope that you enjoy this episode because I had a blast recording it. If you have any feedback, feel free to email me on my personal email address. That's asad.hashamali@cedar.edu.pk, asad.hashimali@cedar.edu.pk. If you have any suggestions, feel free to email me or comment below. This podcast is now available on Apple, on Google Podcasts, on Spotify, on Spreaker. It's everywhere. We are everywhere. And Facebook. So, yeah, this episode was produced by Backspace. My name is Asad Ali, and let's get straight into it. Mr. Ali and Anwerzada, what is up?
Nothing much. You tell me.
How are you today in these very difficult times, actually, I must say?
Yes. So I'm trying to sort of keep myself busy. I've decided to do some healthy stuff. Biking in the morning for 20 kilometers, intermittent fasting, and a lot of other things.
Yeah.
Giving myself a haircut, which is I think a big achievement.
Which I still can't
And
believe. That's very gutsy of you to do, actually. So,
I know it's pretty
yeah.
risky, and it's I'm pretty proud of it because I had to see some YouTube videos, but then I figured it out, and now I'm giving
Where
myself.
where there's a will, there's a way, I guess. Yeah.
There is.
Yeah.
I
So you got your
agree.
Strava app on as well when you go cycling?
Yes, I do.
You're part of the Strava gang.
Now,
That's what they call, you
yeah,
know that,
I'm
right?
the Strava gang.
Yeah, that's what it is,
I'm
apparently.
pretty new, so I'm pretty new to it. But yes, I think you get like I like the idea that when you do 20 kilometers and people are saying kudos to you and all that, and it's like it's a good thing. And
Yeah.
sometimes like yesterday I was like at 15 I was like done, but I was like, you know what, I should do 20 for the Strava kudos and all that.
For my
So yeah,
fans on Strava, I must
my
hit
friends
20.
on Strava, this is them. I dedicate another 5 kilometers for them.
Yeah, I'm sure. So Ali, I feel like when I talk to you, it's talking to family. So I'm gonna be very upfront and up close with you in this whole conversation, because the point of In the
Okay.
Times is actually to basically shed some light on what's going on in people's lives. And
Hmm.
you are not just one of the founders and directors at Cedar. You're also you also run your own school, a primary school as well, by the name of the Ivy School. So I hear
Yeah.
your stories about you're not just balancing um, A levels and your students at the college with your personal life, but then you've also got a second baby as well by the name of Ivy, which is from preschool all the way to now third grade as well. So
Yeah.
for all those listening, actually, the reason why Sir Ali and I hit it off really well is because he taught me in back in my time at Lyceum also, but something that he kept emphasizing throughout was his journey before teaching. So, Sir Ali, I also want you to maybe share some thoughts about how it was for you in your time at banking and also at the Acumen Fund. All right. So now, with that
Hmm.
being said, what do you feel like are some challenges that businesses have now faced in this Corona time that they are now addressing actually?
So I think I mean everyone is affected. There are some people, of course, who have seen this as an opportunity in terms of like business probably going up. Like if you are probably in pharmaceutical and all that, so of course some businesses are probably going to benefit from this, but a lot of businesses have been affected negatively, and there are many reasons for that, of course, because suddenly the demand pattern is changing. You can see, I mean, talk about like grocery stores, suddenly they had to go online. Talk about your clothing businesses, everyone had to go online, find a way to reach out to their customers, find a way to interact with all the SOPs and so on and so forth. So there is a change in the demand pattern, demand sort of consumption style, and
Trends,
even
yeah,
consumption pattern.
yeah.
Also then you are looking at new demand to come as well. So like, I mean, we can talk about schools, of how how schools had to quickly adapt to online teaching and online learning and investing in platforms, training and all that. So there is that challenge that is happening. And on the
Mm.
supply side, then again there are challenges. On the supply side, you are your workers, who are those people who you want to have for executing your task and delivering your product. They cannot really come to work, or if they come to work, there is a significant risk attached to it. So there is that challenge. So on the supply side, you're seeing difficulty in providing the goods on time. On the demand side, you're looking at changing demand or lower demand or even like different demand and so on and so forth. So for an entrepreneur, it's tough. And
Yeah.
the funny part is that unlike other recessions, for example, if you look at 2008 recession or even like recessions that have happened in the past, this kind of a recession is kind of like a recession that we don't know how long it will last, and we don't know what will happen, let's say, when we come out of it. A lot of people, by the way, are predicting, because I'm listening to a lot of podcasts on economics as well. A lot of people are predicting that, like, probably as soon as things come back to normal, you will see a big spike in demand and things may go back to normal very quickly. But the problem that we're seeing is basically, when will that happen? We don't know. So from a business perspective, who are people who are looking at short run versus long run, they don't know, how long is this going to be, and so when is a good time to invest versus when is a good time to sort of not invest and retain your profits and other things. So a lot of uncertainty, basically.
It's pretty interesting you say that You're saying that economists globally are predicting that once the economy and the health crisis ends, you're saying that the economy will go back to its previous form of operation.
I mean, they may say they predict, like, I mean, there are two views about it, and I think I agree with it. Let's say if this is a short-lived phenomenon. Let's
Hmm.
say next 6 months we get a vaccine, things go back to normal, or we, I don't know, some immune system kind of like gets stronger and so on and so forth. Then this doesn't become a big problem. I mean, I don't know. I'm not really following up with the a bio side of it. But let's say something like that happen in 6 months. Let's say we come back to some kind of normalcy. Then there won't be too much of an effect of this
Yeah.
loss of income and all that. But let's
Hmm.
say if you're looking at another 6 to 18 months, or even like 2 years, where then they are predicting that, like, then things will become difficult for a lot longer. But whenever we come out of it, because there will be some kind of an optimism
Hmm.
or a consumer and business confidence that will come back, you will see things to spike up and things to become better.
All right.
But
Interesting.
this is against the background of, like, how big do we end up incurring losses. If these losses are really big, then of course the optimism, no matter how much, will not be so impactful.
Right. Right. And it
So that's the
depends
thing.
also on like it's more of a collective game, right? That you have
Yes.
to see how are you able to really influence the 42.6 million unemployed workers of the USA to bounce that up. So I think people
Yep.
also have to realize that you can't take it for face value. You really have to look at these
Yeah.
small little numbers and also remind
Yeah.
yourself that it feels long. What the point
It
we're
feels
at,
long.
it feels long, but in the grander scheme of things, it's a short run concept.
Yeah, that's also true. I mean, depending on, of course, how long will the impact be?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
right now we do think of it short run, but I don't know how long it will last in terms of its impact. One thing is for sure. I mean, another, I don't know whether this is part of our talk or not, but one thing, I mean, which is fascinating to know is that this kind of a recession is going to be different, because,
Hmm.
on the demand side, you don't want people to go out and, end up spending right now, because when they do that, the caution goes out of the window, and then you end up having more cases and having
Hmm.
more transfer of virus. So you want people to basically stay at home. On the
Right.
supply side also, you want people to stay at home, or even
Hmm.
when they come out, it has to be extremely necessary. So there is that kind of a problem, where ultimately governments are like, what, poor governments have another kind of a dilemma, but like rich governments are like, what, just give the money, let the people sort of buy the essentials,
Yeah.
so that the crisis could just be kind of like controlled. But for
Yeah.
poor countries, of course, you know how it is for us. I think we closed in March, and now we're opening up completely, because it's difficult to sustain.
It's difficult to
Same
say.
thing
Yeah,
which
and
happened with India as well.
each economy has its own set of problems overall, so you can't really take that formula from one country to another country either.
I agree. I agree. And
Hmm.
I know, and nobody knows the formula. I mean, there's some European countries which decided to have a zero lockdown kind of a phenomenon.
And
And who
Sweden, if anything, ended up like
yes.
going in the green. Nine figures.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, so and like Hong Kong, a friend of mine, a very close friend of mine lives there. He's saying we never had like a, they were very quick to react, but then the life is pretty normal there as well. So it all depends
Hmm.
on, like, how well your people take care of themselves,
Right.
and whether you will be able to stay safe
Is this
through
Hong Kong
different
you talking about?
precautions.
Singapore?
Hong Kong.
Hong Kong. Okay.
Singapore has a different set of issues. Singapore was also doing a good job, but then Singapore had an issue of migrants
And
and
then they
workers.
shut themselves up again, basically.
Yes, but Hong Kong has been pretty chill, pretty normal. But the first few sort of months, they were very careful,
Hmm.
and they were able to go back to this. And I think part of the reason why this is the case is because of their past. I mean, they've been
Hmm.
through different SARS and other viruses, so they know how to cope up with this kind of a situation.
Hmm. Fair. All right. So keeping this in mind, actually, that um, it's expected that what you said earlier, that demands might go back to the way they were. We might have a see a creation of a new set of demand altogether, or a new set of consumption pattern altogether. So keeping that point in mind, do you feel that in education right now, there's this spike in a concept of edtech, right? It's all of a sudden become this new hot thing. Also, parents are confused by it, teachers are daunted by it, students don't want to get into it, and educational leaders want to make sure that it's leveraged because that's the solution to the problem
That's
that
the
they
way.
see. Sorry?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. The way you
Yeah.
wording it is absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely spot on. So I'm actually agreeing with all the words that you said.
Yeah.
The educational entrepreneurs want to leverage it. Teachers are
Yeah.
hating it. Students are, I mean,
Don't want to get
um,
near it, and parents are
I mean,
scared of it.
I think I think students are what do you call it? They don't care much right now. I
Yeah.
mean, they're like, okay, life goes on. This is what it is. Parents are hating it for sure.
Yeah.
Especially younger kids' parents, they are hating it because they are part of the process, and so they're hating it. Teachers are, I mean, depending on, but yeah, they're hating it as well. So I
Yeah.
mean, we do have a problem here. Yes.
Yeah. So, and I
Um,
don't mean to disrespect it. I'm just saying seeing it for what it is, because the
yeah.
question that I actually want to get into is that right
Yes.
now there's a demand for it. And so, do you feel that this demand is one that is going to be sustained in the long run? And this is your personal opinion that I asked for, not on behalf of the school or anyone.
So I think there is one thing that is going to happen is, and that's this is, like, sometimes we in economics we say there are unintended consequences. So one of
Hmm.
the unintended consequence of all this sort of forced sort of a movement towards the online. I say force because I think everyone has decided to do it because that's the only way to reach out to the students and all that. So I think one of the unintended consequences will be everyone is going to become better at technology, and
Hmm.
people will realize the power of online learning. I
Hmm.
mean, Khan Academy had an issue because everyone turned to Khan Academy, and they had a major server issue that happened, and they were actually, as soon as COVID-19 happened, schools were shut down, everyone turned to Khan Academy. They actually started asking for funding for their servers to be sort of maintained and all that. And so, like, suddenly you have those kind of problems happening. And so what I feel is basically, the unintended consequence will be everyone will become better at technology. Students, teachers, more entrepreneurs will come in this industry. And I think the whole idea that we used to talk about before COVID-19, the flipped classroom, the like blended learning, and also the ideas of like independent learners and all that, it can actually become a part of learning, which probably wasn't the case before. A lot of people would be like, were rejecting technology, or were, even if they were accepting technology, they had like a whole thing about it. Now they're forced into it, like their professors have to teach classes online through Zoom, and a lot of people actually still are disbelievers. They say that, what, this is all ineffective. Once we come out of COVID-19 and we go back and study the student outcomes in terms of learning, we will realize that it isn't doing much, or it hasn't done much. That I don't know. I just feel maybe it could be true that it wasn't an effective sort of delivery, but maybe it might not be the case.
Hmm.
And maybe we might see kids to become better. I mean, there was an article that I was reading. It's an important article to talk about, because that article talked about how a lot of kids actually love online teaching. Those who were bullied at school, they love it. They're not getting bullied anymore. Those who find the classrooms to be a lot distracting, they're happily be learning at, so like, some learners are actually happy. Some learners who are also independent, they're also loving it, because they know this, that what content is happening, they can shut themselves off. In physical classroom they used to do the same, but usme ye hota hai, they had to sort of go to the classroom, they had to go through the whole thing, they had to be also listening, so that if suddenly a question comes their way, they may need to respond. So now you are like kind of like on your own. But then also there are many other learners who are actually completely uh, disassociated with it as well. So they are finding it challenging, and teachers who were previously looking at students in a physical sense, they can't see those students anymore, and so there's a there is more likelihood of those learners who required more attention to sort of fall through the cracks kind of thing. So I mean, you could have those kind of issues that can happen as well. So there will be some learners benefiting and others struggling for sure. That's something we can look at. But I think overall, I just feel that we need to be more accepting. And I think as a parent of two kids, as a person who is sort of part of managing two schools of different age groups, I know this for sure that, like, if as a if as a parent I say to myself that, what, um this isn't going to work out, and you can see the news, a lot of parents are saying, what, we want free discounts, we don't believe online schooling is going to work. I mean, my question to them is that let's say this COVID-19 and school closure goes on for one more year. What will be the impact of learning, and how will we be able to cope up with it? And you need to understand, 1 year of learning loss is a lot more, is a lot of time loss. And or if it's not one, what if it's 2 years and all that? So we got to sort of be more accepting as parents, as teachers, as that this could be the new normal, and now we need to make sure we take this as an opportunity to do better.
Yeah.
And that means basically coming out of our comfort zone, training. I mean, you and I were talking about the other day, healthy routines,
Yeah.
like finding the healthy routines, making sure that communication becomes better. A lot of it is like, like prompt communication and all that. And by the way, communication is becoming daunting as well. Like,
Hmm.
there are so many things that I right now have to respond to. Like, I'm responding to my email, my IV email, Cedar email, personal email, Shivel's, my son's email, my daughter's emails for the homework. Then there is WhatsApp, which has tons of messages coming. I'm responding to those. Then there is other work that is basically also happening that you need to. So and you feel sometimes that, like, there's so many people to respond to suddenly, because that's the way you respond.
Yeah.
Um, so it is pretty daunting, but we got to sort of accept it
Yeah.
and make the best of it. So
So
that's my view.
keeping that in mind, actually, um, is that I think that what you were saying, that the descriptions that you mentioned of different learning speeds and who's now at an advantage, who was previously disadvantaged in some way. um,
Mm-hmm.
I feel that now, like, with the fact that education is now completely virtual, has allowed it to be a level playing field for many, and it's removed that barrier. There's no obstacle now, or barrier to entry, or barrier to success in academics in any way for any child. The one who was weak in class now can learn at a self-paced way. The one who felt bullied in class now doesn't have to be bullied. Sorry, doesn't have to, like, be exposed to that situation. And the one who was learning at a faster pace can learn at an even faster pace and not have to be bogged down by any teacher bias as well. And there's no teacher bias in this case now. So how do you feel that
You never know, by the way,
schools?
teacher bias can still happen, because, like, what if I don't like you and I don't give you a call? What if you are raising your hand, and or
I mean it from the
virtually
sense
raising?
that it's a solution. Like, I don't mean it from like a Zoom call kind of a virtual classroom. So I
Mm.
mean, like, where you're.
Yeah, but there's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot. But, like, also, one of the challenges, at least in now we're seeing, I mean, I'm telling you, this is because I never realized this, that because, when you're teaching an A level class versus when you look at a primary class, A level
Mhm.
class, the students are probably, like, they don't switch on their cameras, the class sizes are big, so you don't see them, they are chatting and all that, so you don't know where they are on mute and all that, they could be sitting in the lounge or in their bed or whatever. But when you
Mhm.
look at now with the primary students, we are actually asking them to switch on their cameras. The class size is also very small, and some of the schools, and that's not with our school, luckily, and because the student parent body is probably different, but some of the schools are finding it very difficult to teach to the primary kids, not because of the kids or not because of the children. It's because of the environment that they're working in. Like one of the schools actually wrote to the parent body saying, like, you got to switch off the TV when the child is studying, or you have to stop distracting the child, because let's say the child is studying, he's part of he's in the math sort of math class, and suddenly mom will come and mom puts the food in front, "Ki beta khao," like that kind of a thing is also happening.
Yeah.
So there are those challenges that are happening. And again, parents have to become kind of like serious to what it is. Otherwise we won't have the same results. I mean, we can't have the same result, but we won't have any results for that matter if we
Yeah.
don't have the right kind of learning environments and kind of things that are.
So, as a spectator to all of this, it's kind of entertaining for me because my mom's teaching first grade, and I can see that she tells me stories that there's this boy, he comes late to class and he says that my mommy didn't wake me up or didn't give me nashta on time. That's why I'm late to school today. And online
Yeah.
class में भी ऐसे ही कोई excuse आ रहा है सामने से. It's kind of entertaining in that sense, is that now you're literally exposed
Yeah.
to the problems the child was talking about in the first place.
Yeah.
you know,
I agree with you.
but
And
so
then and then when
continue.
the teacher is asking questions, right? So like like my second grade, my son was in second grade, the teacher was asking, so what do you have for breakfast? And he's like, it's the same thing every day, I'm eating eggs. And you're listening to it and you're like, dude, don't share all the stories.
Ungrateful.
Ungrateful, you know what.
Yeah. So I want to segue a little bit into uh, having into the perspective of edtech being open access, or like not open source but being accessible to many. There's many schools in Karachi itself that can't really afford making that digital shift. These are also private schools which have
Yeah,
you know, they're private schools,
challenges of
so
their own.
they
Yeah.
have challenges of their own. So how do you feel that, or what advice would you give to all those school leaders out there that are trying to maybe take a step in the first place also? Be it, and it could be maybe a problem of scale, it could be a problem of resources, of technology, of acumen.
I think it's um, I would like to divide this sort of problem into like a resources versus let's say if you don't have resources. If you don't have resources and let's say you are a low income private school, then I think it's a bigger challenge for you, because the student body may not have access to technology too, and I don't know how they will be able to cope up with it. Of course, you would want to help the your students, but they may need to have a device to begin with. you know what if they have only one computer at home, and let's say that computer is being used for one thing or the other? Then how are you sharing your content, and sharing content through what way? I think my advice to those people who are in that sort of segment where they have resource issue, they should rely on already pre-made content out there. So, like if, for example, I think relying on Khan Academy, relying on videos that are already out there, content that don't make the content, find the content and try to make sure you reach out to your audience. I think that's my advice. Like if I was in that problem, I'd be like, you know what, why not I just look at all the videos that are for, let's say I'm a grade 2 teacher for math. I'll be like, you know what, these are the topics that I have to teach. My students are struggling. My first job should be, let me just direct them to the content. Second part of my problem would be, okay, why how do I make sure that my students um, I mean, see it, and that's where I think probably the school may reach out to parents and ask them, like, these are the things that we want your child to watch, and they are available here, and so please give him access to computer, at least this much access to computer. and
Hmm.
and then like try to make the papers, at least the worksheets and all those, somehow reach out to those, but to the students through delivery or whatever. But it's going to be a challenge, but at least I think they should not waste time in making their own content. I think that's something which a lot of schools even abroad are not doing it. A lot of
Yeah.
schools abroad are actually also relying on, and these are good schools by the way, which are relying on pre-made content of Khan Academy or one thing or the other. And the
Yeah.
internet is super rich with all that content. For the other schools, let's talk about the schools that are that have the resources, but probably scale is a challenge, or probably um, acumen, as you said. I think for them, there is also A, rely on what is already out there, B, train the teachers. And I think training teachers becomes really important, and I'm going through the process. I'm also teaching economics, so I had to train myself. Then I am now looking at teachers. Now at Ivy, for example, we have teachers of different age and background as well. Some are pretty quick at adopting technology. So for them to conduct classes, Zoom wasn't a big challenge, or make presentations, voiceover, morning message videos and all that. So it was challenging because suddenly you have to be on camera, you have to be talking, you have to be like fully energetic, you have to be not shy. So this all becomes pretty daunting, and you need to, as school leaders, you need to be encouraging, you need to be patient, and you need to make sure that they, in the next 1 to 2 months, become better. um, the only problem to this is that your student body has parents who are also looking at your content, and they are paying fee, who and they are already complaining whether the fee is justified in this time. And while you are going through your learning curve as a teacher or as a school, they are pretty impatient. Um, and so, I mean, that's the biggest problem schools are facing. I mean, schools abroad may not have faced that much problem that schools in Pakistan are facing, and I really want to sort of take this as a platform to talk about that, because here the other party which is out there, which is paying for your services, is pretty impatient, and
Mm-hmm.
they are basically big disbelievers, and they want the best online class from the teachers right away, while this is a learning curve and it takes time, and
Mm-hmm.
you become better as you keep on teaching online. And I'm seeing it, by the way. This is our first week, and the first day versus second day versus fourth day, things are just every day they're improving so significantly. And the
Mm-hmm.
reason is simply because you got to sort of like um, teach uh, to become better at it,
Mm-hmm.
no matter how much training you get. Like if I give you Zoom training and this and that, as soon as you become like a user of it, in when you're managing your students and all that, you become better at it. So I think that's so my advice to those leaders out there who are about to start. I mean, number one, training. Number two, simplicity as well. And I think this is something which is a lesson that I just learned. We, as a school, uh, started to invest in a lot of platforms, but our parents came back to us. They said, you know what, you just gave us an email. We can't manage an email. We are managing our email. We want to manage, you want us to manage our children email as well. And then they said, you know what, there is another platform like Seesaw. You're like, why do we have that? Then they were like, like, why do you need Zoom? Why do you need this? Then we have other learning platforms which were, when we were physical, when classes were happening in physical sense, they were pretty useful, but now they are added burden for students. So
Yeah.
suddenly, too many things, too many passwords to remember, too many is becoming a problem. And you as a school want to deliver more, but the the parents are now finding it challenging, because they are the ones who are kind of like your learning partners in this journey, and
Mm-hmm.
they are the ones who feel, and I think they feel guilty as well. What if child A decided to do a lot of exercise on one platform, and your child is not doing it, and you feel guilty. So your response to the school is, why don't you cut down on all those platforms
Mm-hmm.
that you give in? So I think this is the biggest challenge as well. So keep it simple.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to roll it out in stages. I think this is what we have also have learned. And the third advice would be, so first was training, second is like simple,
Simplicity.
and the third, simplicity. And the last advice, probably, I mean, if I could sort of think about it, last advice is basically uh, communication. I think has become a really important sort of sort of thing. I think in this time, more communication is important, and we're also learning it um, with time. Like initially, we used to think that what we will reach out to them after every 2 weeks, but now every week, the head
Seems
of school
less
at
in some
Ivy,
way. Yeah.
yeah, no, we need to sort of reach out. The coordinators are reaching out to parents and explaining them the timetable, walking them through. The head of school is reaching out to parents, giving them the holistic picture of things and all that. So like teachers are reaching out every day, end of the day, writing an email, simplifying whatever the tasks are there. And this message is repeated from all parties so that people feel okay about it.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
mean, a lot of communication is needed, and
Hmm.
communication requires also training, and that's something which I want to also talk about. I suddenly, people, we're not used to communication. I am from that age. You won't uh, believe it, but I'm from that age where we used to believe that email is very, very important. If
Hmm.
somebody writes an email to you, you got to respond back quickly.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
like that's the age that I'm from. You guys are from that age where you are a little dismissive about emails. You're
When
like,
he says
okay,
you
fine.
guys, he's talking about everyone listening, not me. He's talking about people listening in A levels
No,
right
even
now.
I think you are also of that age. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm judgmental here. But I'm telling you one thing for sure, that um, because WhatsApp and other communication ये जो आई हैं इनका सबसे बड़ा नुकसान ही होता है, because you end up, because there's so much of back and forth that email.
Impatience
So
हमारी इतनी बढ़ गई है in communication tools की वजह से कि we forget like the base, you
also
know?
we forgot to. I think this is something which you will agree with me. We've also forgotten how to read. We don't
Yeah.
read. I mean, honestly
No, no,
speaking,
no. Of
I
course,
don't, I don't, and
I'll be
I'm
very
also guilty
honest.
here.
I'll be very open about it. This is right now. It's been 35 minutes for you and I recording. There's a 5 minute
Yeah,
intro before this. I don't think
yeah,
that anyone's going to reach to this point. So
I don't think so.
forget listening.
So
That's also that's wishful
we should
thinking,
start,
right?
yeah,
That's
we should
wishful
start
thinking.
singing songs, like, because nobody's going to reach to this part.
Nobody will reach. Yeah, So, but the point is that it's no one's listening, no one's reading. Also, there's a
No one's
quick,
reading.
quick content we want, and
Yeah.
this is also why I hate TikTok. All right, I gotta use it, but I hate
Okay.
it.
I'm not on TikTok.
Please don't go on it. So, but
Okay.
I think it's just that this impatience has this. I read somewhere that or heard somewhere that if you don't have the patience to read what I've written, don't have the hubris to comment on it.
Yeah.
And we go straight into the commentary before we even decide to read
Yeah.
something.
I agree
But
with
I
you,
cut
and
you
I
off
think
there. I'm sorry.
no, I agree with you, and I'm thinking this is, and it's hurting us more now, because when somebody says, "Oh, but you why didn't I know about this?" and you're like, "Oh, I wrote an email." You're like, "Really?" And like, and then you like suddenly, "Oh my god, I didn't read the email." But that's where I think parents are also finding it challenging.
Yeah,
Um, I think we need to go back to a lot of things and start reading things properly. Um, but it's very difficult, because now we're in a stage of like skimming everything.
yeah. If it's two scrolls on your phone, it's too long. That's I think the ratio
Yeah,
that's come about.
like, to be honest, like, you sent me the whole thing about this
Yeah,
talk, and
didn't read
then
it.
just I didn't read it.
Didn't
I
read
was
it.
like, okay, I think this is what he's talking about. This is what I need to talk about, and in the first 5 minutes, I'll get an idea, and I'll let's
And
wing
I'll
it.
be open to. I got these notes. I didn't read it. I just got. I saw the first question and the last question. I sent it to you. I'm like, beach ka to sahi hoga. It's like a sandwich, right? You need to have two pieces of bread on top and bottom, and the rest is whatever inside.
And, and the funny thing is, I don't know whether we should be talking about it in this talk, but funny thing is, when I was going through the first few lines, I was like, did Asad really to take time to write this? And I was like, that's a lot of effort for this talk. Some poor chap or girl or boy must have done the effort for us,
Yeah.
and
But
we probably
if
care
that
about
poor
reading it.
chap or girl is listening, then trust me, I did read it then. All right. At that time, I
And
didn't
I
read
also read
it,
it.
but I did read it.
Okay.
And I've skimmed down all the questions into this conversation, so you'll know when you know.
Yeah.
um,
Also funny thing is, when I was like, and I want to go back to this story, because when I was like um bankrupt. So I used to make these credit proposals or investment sort of memorandums, as we call them, used to IM, and they had these numbers, and you would churn out numbers. You would spend nights to do it, and you would write a report, and then you had to defend this with a set of people who were probably really busy members of different sort of organizations, who would then listen to your presentation and decide whether the company should invest or not. And like, I used to think about it, and I'll be like, nobody's going to read it. Nobody's going to go through the numbers. They will decide everything there and then. But yes, if I commit a mistake here, and they find it out, then I will be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
So while you are doing your work, that nobody's going to read it. But at the same time, you have to get it done properly, because what if they read it? The what if part makes you like pretty scared.
100%. And that's why I just keep reminding myself. It's that, even if no one knows, I know. So am I not someone in this equation? I could tell 5 other people, they'll find that error, and then boom,
Yeah.
all guns blazing with that issue.
Yeah. So maybe reputation is at stake for all of us. And I think, so I think whenever we skim or whatever, do it superficially, remember that some part of your reputation may go down to the drain. If you do it too often, too much.
Yeah, this was a good conversation, sir. Good conversation. Yeah. Thank you so much for your time, by the way. So for all those listening, let's just summarize it real quickly. We spoke about world economics and what businesses are going through. We spoke about what schools are going through. Educational leaders, if you're listening, keep it simple, keep your material simple, keep your resources simple. Also, keep training, keep learning, keep practicing. But above all else, just don't give up. I think that's something that we all need to remind ourselves, is that if you communicate with your parent body, with your teachers, with your students, and even amongst your own team, you're all going to realize everyone has the same problem. I'm 100% sure that when Sir Ali is talking about all of this, he's telling us about issues parents come up with. He is also a parent of the school as well. He empathizes. And इंसान से ही बात कर रहे, he himself has tech issues as well, so naturally he's going to be able to help one of the parents at the school also solve their tech issues. And even if you're an A-level student, just don't throw any excuses about Zoom, all right? Because he knows that. So if you want to come up with a wise answer, then you better be sure about what you're saying to him. And I think this last joke segment was pretty good. Be honest with yourself and make sure you read what you get, or especially what you're writing as well. Yeah.
Every now and then, I think we need to go back to the habit of reading.
Yeah. But thank you so much for your time.
Talking to myself as well. Yeah. Yes. Thanks a lot for inviting me.
This was a pleasure. For all those listening, this was Ali and Anwerzada with me, Asad Hashim Ali. You listened to In the Times with Cedar College. This episode was produced by Backspace. See you all in the next one, next Thursday at the same time. Till then, bye-bye.